evening, everyone. Thank you for being there this evening. I, Architect Mildred, extend a very warm welcome to all the participants of the first day of the webinar lecture series organized by the Center for History and Archaeology. Before I proceed with the first speaker for today, we have with us Ms. Surbhi Ghosh Maulik, who would be enlightening us and giving us a brief of ASSR. Surbhi Ghosh Maulik ma'am is a gold medalist of MA in Bengali literature from Bhagalpur University. She has worked as a lecturer at SM College Bhagalpur under COH SSIP program of the UGC. She has also worked as an editor for a Bengali magazine called ATATI. She has been a reviewer at Shilpi Sena, a Bengali magazine published in Kolkata. She is the founder of Derosian Study Circle, which used to work for supporting underprivileged and spreading social awareness. She's been a teacher and a volunteer for an NGO called Gunj. She's been an executive body member of Bangya Sahitya Parishad Bhagalpur, a member of Bihar Bangla Academy, member of various extracurricular departments inside the Kendriya Vidyalaya Sangathan. She's also a journal publisher on socio-economic parameters of tribes along the belt of the Koshi River in Saharsa in Bihar. She's been a compiler and editor for the magazine published by Tapovardhan Prakritik Chikitsa Kendra, Bhagalpur. She is currently a coordinator of Awakening Citizenship Program, a project under the Ram Krishan Mission, and she's presently working as a senior librarian at Kendriya Vidyalaya Sangathan. Over to you, Surbhi ma'am.
I'm audible?
Yes, ma'am. Please go ahead.
Yes. Some problem has come. Okay. मुझे देख पा रहे हो?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
Continue.
Yes. Good evening. Good evening to all the present dignitaries and my colleagues of ASSR and the audience of this webinar. As the Chief Executive of ASSR, I welcome you all in this webinar and a wonderful platform created by our young team of history enthusiasts. Before we start today's webinar, I would like to throw some light on the aim and motive behind this ASSR CHA. Why would like to do all this work? Here is some point noted to me, and that is here. Firstly, we need to protect and preserve India's heritage by sensitizing public about the cultural legacy of India and instill a sense of social responsibilities among them. Furthermore, to conduct archaeological excavation, exploration, promote heritage tourism, and document the unprotected history. Additionally, to provide expertise in respective fields, provided training and certificate courses, generate sponsorship for conservation and educational projects, and collaborate with government and other agencies for the same. Last but not the least, to make the people aware about our heritage by conducting conferences, seminars, and lectures, along with offering large number of programs for our stakeholders. We all know that there are a number of organizations and programs are being run in the field of history. However, I believe that the need of hour is to dive deep. एक गहन अध्ययन की जरूरत अभी भी बाकी है. हमारे विशाल भारत का जो महत्तम जेम्स जो अंदर में छुपा पड़ा हुआ है अभी भी, उसके अंदर की सत्य को उजागर करने के लिए अनुसंधान का निरंतर प्रयास की काफी जगह अभी भी बाकी है. हम आप सबसे विनम्र अनुरोध कर रहे हैं कि हमारा इस नया जो पौधा, ये जो किस्लय ASSRCHA हमने बनाया है, इसके आगे बढ़ने के जो प्रयास हमारे बच्चे कर रहे हैं, आप सब हमारे साथ रहे और इस पैंडेमिक में, इस कोरोना के बीच में डेवलपिंग माइंड्स के पास ये संगठन हमारे देशवासियों के पास एक नया रूप लेके पहुंचे। इट्स काइंड ऑफ दिस काइंड ऑफ इंफॉर्मेटिक्स वेबिनार होते रहे, ये इच्छा के साथ मैं अपनी वाणी को विराम देते हुए आज के वेबिनार को आगे बढ़ाने के लिए सम्मति देती हूँ। धन्यवाद।
Thank you, Survi ma'am, for that wonderful introduction of ASSR. With that introductory note, it gives me immense pleasure to introduce our speaker for today, Dr. Arjun R. Dr. Arjun R is an assistant professor of archaeology at Central University of Karnataka, India. He is a prehistoric archaeologist focused on Neolithic and Iron Age archaeology with landscape and settlement approaches in the region of semi-arid Central Deccan Plateau and tropical forests of the Western Ghats. He has discovered about 75 sites in Karnataka. His archaeological research projects were funded by the National Geographic Society, Washington, D.C., Nehru Trust for the Indian Collections at the Victoria and Albert Museum, London, International Union for Quaternary Research, and Indian Council of Historical Research. He has published 20 research papers in various national and international journals, including Current Science, Archaeological Research in Asia, Acta Ethnographia, etc. He has presented his papers in international conferences held at Cambridge, Dublin, and India. He has peer-reviewed for journals such as Antiquity, Archaeological Research in Asia, Heritage, Tamil Civilization, Current Science, etc. He has given invited talks on various platforms at Tumkur University, Tamil University, and Madurai Kamraj University. He is a scientific committee member for Dr. H. Narasimhai International Science Center, IISC Bangalore, ECN Regional Representative for India, Past Global Changes, Switzerland, Life Member of the Indian Society for Prehistoric and Quaternary Studies, Pune, India and European Association for South Asian Studies, Bonn, Germany. With that elaborate description, I request your full attention and help me welcome our first speaker for the day, Dr. Arjun R, who will be enlightening us on the topic Iron Age and Megaliths in South India, Geographic and Temporal Characteristics. Over to you, Dr. Arjun. Please come on board, sir.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you very much for your introduction. I will try sharing my screen now.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
The slides are visible?
Yes, sir. Perfect. Please go ahead.
Okay. Yeah. So myself, Arjun, I'm from Karnataka, Central University of Karnataka. My specialization is in the Neolithic and Iron Age archaeology, and I will be emphasizing on Iron Age culture. Iron Age culture is also synonymously identified as megalithic culture, particularly in South India. Before speaking on this topic in concern, I also thank the organizers for their efforts and the invitation to call me for this lecture by the Center for History and Archaeology, ASSI. So much of you will be aware of different chronological aspects of prehistoric culture. And one significant turning point which the cultural evolution or the human population witnessed is the Iron Age. And it bridged the gap between the pre-literate societies and the literate societies. It also bridged the gap between the early rudimentary stone tool technologies with that of metallurgy. To a larger extent, greater production of iron or greater production of metal tools and implements began with the Iron Age, with contemporary to the major population expansion that occurred in India. So I will also be emphasizing on the geographical and temporal characteristics that are visible in South Indian sites very particularly. So when we say Iron Age in South Asia, what does it mean? Because Iron Age in South Asia is something that is very peculiar to the geographical association. The very understanding of Iron Age cultures, as well as the emergence of Iron Age or iron technology, has been dissimilar to the geographical approaches of the Indian subcontinent. When we say South Asia or Indian subcontinent, it is a very diversified geographical landscape. It's not only a varied geographical landscape, it also has ecological and climatic implications. You can see Iron Age cultures in the extreme tundra regions or in the ice-capped mountains of Himalayas, and you can also spot Iron Age sites or megalithic sites in the most driest part of the Indian subcontinent in the southern Deccan or in the central Deccan plateau. Megaliths or Iron Age sites are also evident in the Indus Basin, where the first civilization of the Indian subcontinent emerged, and it is also evident in the northeastern or eastern part of Himalayas into the deep forest, where it receives high rainfall area and it is tropical ecology. So therefore, Iron Age culture in Indian subcontinents, in simple words, it is very, very diverse. It is not only diverse in terms of the site distribution in ecological region, but it was also diverse in terms of cultural emergence and the nature of settlement, nature of the material culture it emerged. So therefore, this phase of human past or this phase of cultural past, it bridges conveniently between the pre-literate societies and literate societies, or what we very broadly classify in historical studies as prehistory and history. So therefore, this period of Iron Age is very, very crucial to understand, particularly the Indian archaeology, or even it is an Indian history. Because this is the time period where both historians and archaeologists come together to study a cultural point of time. Because by and large, prehistory is more of an archaeologist work, an archaeologist dialogue. Whereas history, which determines its source from the literature or inscriptions or any form of writings, the source have been much emphasized or examined by the historians. But very interestingly, Iron Age brings both historians and archaeologists together to study this turning point in the cultural evolution of human past. On the other hand, by a large extent, Iron Age was something that was a concern of historians and archaeologists throughout 19th and 20th century. However, from the past 2-3 decades, we can see increasing trend in a multidisciplinary projects or multidisciplinary studies focusing on the Iron Age culture. What makes this more multidisciplinary interesting point of view is that it is not just the material culture, or it is not just the cultural affinities that we can find in the Iron Age. Rather, there is also zoological, botanical, and linguistic approaches that are coming and gets attributed with the Iron Age. When we say linguistic approaches, botanical and zoological approaches, it examines flora, fauna, and the population expansion, which is impossible without a proper linguistic development that have occurred here. Therefore, in India, Iron Age can be considered as a juncture where people started using iron objects and beginning of a new economy, specialization, and resource-based politics. These three terminologies are very crucial. What new economy did the Iron Age culture brought, how they themselves ritualized different social customs and traditions, and how they developed their resource and how this resource become part of their politics. So therefore, Iron Age is where the beginning of iron objects started, because iron is in usage even today. But we cannot say that we are in Iron Age. Therefore, our understanding of Iron Age is the earliest part of Iron Age where iron was invented, and the gradual process where iron metallurgy, iron objects started to determine the lifestyle, economy, and various aspects of various aspects of human behavior. That part, we are talking about that part of Iron Age that extends during the second millennium and first millennium BCE. Iron Age is post-Chalcolithic or Bronze Age culture when it comes to prehistoric understanding in northern and northwestern part of India. Whereas Iron Age in South India is followed by Neolithic or Neolithic and Chalcolithic culture. So this metallurgical continuity in usage is very crucial to understand, because in the northwestern part of India and in extreme northern Deccan, there the use of copper and bronze is followed by the use of iron metallurgy. Whereas in South India, we don't have much emphasis of Chalcolithic and Bronze Age or bronze metallurgy, which led to the development of iron metallurgy. To be precise, in fact, we cannot try to understand the metallurgical evolution in the Indian subcontinent without having a understanding of its continuity. Rather, on the other hand, we can also say that the metallurgy of copper or bronze and the metallurgy of iron could be an independent and different route of its origin into the Indian subcontinent. We have five major ecological regions spotting Iron Age sites or megalithic sites, such as Indus Basin, Ganga Yamuna Dawab, Vindhya Satpura, Deccan Plateau, and the regions of tropical rainforest in the northeast and the western Ghats, which can be broadly classified these five ecological regions into 8 zones. For example, it's starting from the northwest, the area of Baluchistan and Perak, where the Gandhara grave culture emerged after the disintegration of the Indus Valley sites or Harappan civilization. The next moment can be seen in terms of megalithic and Iron Age development in the western part of Himalayas, where the sites such as the Chitral, Gafurkal, and Burzaham are there. So these are the sites that are in the greater elevated and in the frozen areas of the Himalayas. So the next development you can find in the upper Ganga plains and lower and middle Ganga plains, with 2 different distinct cultural development. The OCP culture is followed by the PGW culture in the upper Ganga plains, and that is how it is got associated with the Iron Age. To a larger extent, the contemporary literature, such as the Vedas, the Rig Veda and other 3 Vedas, correspond to the development of the Gangetic plain culture in the upper part and the middle part. And this is the same time where use of iron and metallurgy of iron sciences developed, and it is also reflected to a certain extent in the literature as well. So therefore, moving from the upper Ganga to the middle and lower Ganga plains, it also transforms with the PGW, that is painted grey pottery ware, to the NBPW, and followed by NBPW as red ware and black and red ware traditions of ceramic developments. So to a larger extent, our popular cultural understanding of the second urbanization or the second generation of cities that emerged in the Ganga plains can be contemporary to the extensive as well as intensive development of iron production and iron use in the Gangetic Plains. So the next sub-region is the Vidarbha region or Central Indian region. This also corresponds with certain development of megalithic culture, which can also be pre-Iron Age in context and Iron Age in context. When we say pre-Iron Age in context in the Central India, it is need not necessarily to be a chalcolithic sites or chalcolithic cultures. The further development can be seen more extensively and in a more demonstrable manner is in the regions of Vidarbha, the north western part of Maharashtra, or it is also corresponds with the northern Deccan Plateau. And the adjoining region of Vidarbha, the Chota Nagpur Plateau, demonstrates even continuity of megalithism with the present tribal groups, which is a different matter of ethnographic understanding of megalithism expanding even today. Large number of sites of Iron Age or the megalithic sites is spotted in the South India. It represents the ecological regions of the middle and southern Deccan Plateau, where the major river basins such as Bhima, Tungabhadra, Krishna and Kaveri has its catchment area. And this is the region where we have bulk of the sites are reported, and there are much more complexity to understand the settlement, landscape, and the cultural developments in terms of habitation of Iron Age sites compared to any of the regions in the northern India or any other part of the India. The further two developments in the ecological niches of high rainfall area or tropical forest is the Western Ghats, particularly the southern part of the Western Ghats, not the northern part of the Western Ghats corresponding with the regions of Maharashtra or Gujarat. Rather, we have to come down to Karnataka and Kerala part of Western Ghats, and similar developments are also evident in the eastern Himalayas. Very importantly, the dates of the megalithic sites dates in the eastern Himalayas are majorly modern to the medieval period of time. So therefore, these are the different zones where you can find Iron Age sites, where you can find megalithic burials as well. I can understand that repeated usage of both these terms, that is Iron Age and the megalithic burials or megalithic sites, to some extent will confuse you, because it sounds that these two are two different traditions. However, though for a longer period of time, these two terms have distinctly dominated our understanding of the same cultural episode that occurred during the mid of the second millennium and the first millennium BCE. However, there is no much sharp distinction between the terminologies such as Iron Age and megalithic sites, because megalithic sites or megaliths represents the mortuary practices or the burial practices of the Iron Age. To a larger extent, 99% of megalithic sites that we know from India, they all belong to the Iron Age cultural period, dating between 1800 BC to 300 BCE. Some megalithic sites also extend its chronology or temporality into the early historic stage. So we will be discussing this geographical and temporal variations in much more detail in further slides. So I will just, for a new beginners, I will just also emphasize on what are the evidences that we have to study this Iron Age in India. We have two kinds of sources. One is archaeological source and the literary source. On the archaeological sources, we have archaeological sites themselves, such as classified into settlements or habitations, and the burial sites or megaliths. We also have number of reports on iron smelting workshops or iron smelting sites, where iron objects and the process of metallurgy, such as furnace, slag, ore, they themselves are the direct evidence for the iron sourcing itself. Particular ceramic assemblage gets associated with the Iron Age, particularly speaking, black and red ware, russet coated ware, white painted black and red ware, and other ceramics such as painted grey ware, northern black polished ware in the northern or in different parts of Indian subcontinent. So therefore, even ceramic assemblage points out at the Iron Age culture. Then we have crop shoots, flora and faunal evidences, including the rock art when it comes to the archaeological sources in the southern part of India. On the other hand, we also have literary sources, as I mentioned you, the Vedas, the Buddhist texts, directly and indirectly mentions or refers to the iron smiths, iron objects, and possible mining revenues that are referred in the Kautilya Arthashastra in the later dates. This is the literature that is coming from the Gangetic Plains, whereas the literature that emerged from the south on the Kaveri Basin, that is the Tamil literature or Sangam literature, also details on the use of iron objects, the production of iron, and more importantly, it also stress upon the mortuary practices that were practiced in the southern part of India as reflected in the contemporary times of Tamil literature. To a certain extent, we also have graffiti marks or graffiti on the ceramics of megalithic burials, but however, they remains highly unclassified. They cannot be said, they cannot be put into the category of pictographs or petroglyphs or neither scripts. It can be more of a symbolic in understanding. So what was happening with the Iron Age culture in an Indian context? It is very important because by now you are familiar with a regional diversity at the ecological levels and in the zonal levels. And by this you also understood that iron is everywhere. It's not just south or northeast or the northwest. Rather, you can find iron usage, iron production, and the science of metallurgy across Indian subcontinent. However, the impact of iron on the cultural process or the impact of iron on the society is not similar. It is very dissimilar and diverse when it comes to different regional periods. So therefore, some archaeologists try to classify the Iron Age into three phases, that is early Iron Age, middle Iron Age, and late Iron Age, corresponding to the dates between 1200 to 700 BC, between 600 to 200 BC, and late Iron Age contemporary to the Mauryas, Shungas, or Kushanas or Guptas. However, by larger understanding, these classification of the impact of iron on the society and how iron production led to the socio-politics or emergence of political system in northern India is very much clear in terms of early, middle, and late Iron Age. On the other hand, this phase also corresponds with the advances in the iron metallurgy or the science of metallurgy. From wrought iron technology during the earliest phase to the iron technology with steeling and carburization or quenching process during the middle Iron Age, and by the time of late Iron Age, there is a technologically differed based on the iron categories itself. A new kind of science of metallurgy, such as the wood steel, started to emerge, and it is also reflected in the high-grade qualities of the Mehroli pillar at Delhi, for example. So this is how the changes occurred in the iron technology corresponds with the different phases of social developments. Particularly, also can be evident in the kind of objects that it was procured or manufactured. In the early Iron Age phase, there were arrowheads, spearheads, points, and knives and blades, which are more used in the defensive and hunter-gathering activities. Whereas when coming to the middle phase, this was also the phase where the Mahajanapadas emerged, and it also led to the emergence of the first empires in the Indian political context, which corresponds to the more sophisticated weapons such as javelin, lances, daggers, blades, plowshares, which are highly utilized in the offensive activities as well as in the agricultural and allied agricultural activities, and even to an extent pastoral activities. Armor grade weapons, which becomes very important for the state politics in both offense and defensive strategies, is clear in the late Iron Age, and we don't have to taper into the political history of India or political history of Mauryas or post-Mauryas, where number of battles took place and iron implements and weapons started to dominate the socio-political context in the Indian subcontinent. So this is all about the general understanding of Iron Age culture in the Indian subcontinent or in the South Asia. Now let us go deeper into the South Indian context to try to understand what is this megalithic culture in South India, why megalithic culture is a predominant development of mortuary practices or richer traditional practices that emerged during the second and first millennium BCE. And we will try to evaluate why the density of megalithic sites or density of Iron Age sites are extensive in South India compared to any of the ecological regions in Asia. It's not just Indian subcontinent. If you look at the density or the population distribution of Iron Age cultures, Iron Age population in South India, it is the most densest in the South Asia, entire South Asia, because on records we have more than 3,000 sites mentioned in the South Indian context. I mean to say this 3,000 number is something that is a rough calculation or a rough record that we have. We don't know how many sites have vanished, how many sites are yet to be recorded, and how many sites will come to the light. But to a larger understanding, we have more than 3,000 sites in South India, and therefore it makes itself as a most densest distribution of cultural sites in South India compared to any of the ecological regions in the Indian subcontinent. Not only that, this is the high time period where never in the prehistoric period there was a distribution of sites at this level, because Paleolithic culture, we do have Paleolithic sites across Indian subcontinent, including the South India. We have Mesolithic sites. For the very first time, we try to understand that population expansion occurred into the Indian subcontinent, but very short with a very short period of time during the Mesolithic and Neolithic culture. The people or the cultural population started to cluster their concentration into different zones. But South Indian megaliths you can find everywhere, on the river banks, on the stream banks, on the plains, on the slope of the hills, on the hilltops, whatnot. Everywhere in every kind of landscape you can find megalithic sites in South India. So what is the reason behind that is something that we have to very seriously look into. To a larger extent, archaeology in India actually began with the megalithic sites. This is very surprising because much of the concentration of archaeological studies has been on the first civilization in the northwestern India, which is celebrating its 100 years or centenary years for its reporting and studies. However, the earliest archaeological studies in India actually occurred from the megalithic sites, and the earliest could be Colonel Mackenzie as per one record, but records become very clear with the Babington right from 1823, where he studied megalithic culture, megalithic sites in Malabar region and the Nilgiris in Tamil Nadu. So Babington, the description of the Pandukulis in Malabar by Babington gave a first record about the structures called megaliths, and it is also the time where they clearly identified these were associated with the mortuary practices. Then Meadows Taylor in 1841, he concentrated in the northern part of Karnataka and northern northwestern part of Andhra Pradesh, where he identified large number of sites, and for the very first time he started to build up a very scientific understanding of megalithic tombs. Because these people, these colonial officers, they were from Europe, and particularly the western part of Europe. And the western part of Europe also has megalithic sites. Only thing is the context of the Western European sites goes back to the Neolithic culture and not for the Iron Age culture. So therefore, identifying these similar kind of tombs or similar kind of architectural features in South India was very much easy for Babington, Taylor, Munn, or various other investigators who recorded and documented. Babington, Taylor, and Leonard Mull, they reported a number of megalithic sites particularly in the regions of northern Karnataka, and even today, the density of sites that gets recorded on the banks in the catchment areas of Bhima, Krishna, and Tungabhadra are very, very high. However, though these individuals reported megalithic sites and they often opened it, we can't say they excavated megalithic sites. Rather, the objective of these people to understand mortuary practices from the megalithic sites is by opening the tombs. It's not excavations. However, their observations about the mortuary practices and the materials that were available from the megalithic sites are highly accurate, and it remains sustainable theories even today. But only thing is, these individuals believed that megalithic tombs or these mortuary practices probably dated during the 200 or 300 years ago, because their understanding of the megalithic sites and their origin and authorship was given to the hill dwellers or the masonry professions who were tribal communities in these regions who might have erected these burials from past 200, 300 years. However, our understanding of megalithic culture and Iron Age culture started gradually improvised from the works of M.H. Krishna and Mortimer Wheeler. The very first scientific excavation in India was conducted at Brahmagiri by Mortimer Wheeler and M.H. Krishna during 1930s and 1940s. This is the time where they excavated the sites such as Brahmagiri and Chandravali in the central part of Karnataka, and for the very first time they attributed that the materials that you find from the megalithic burials and the materials that are evident from the stratigraphic sequence of habitation sites are similar, and they are the first who identified that these megalithic mortuary practices are actually Iron Age population, or their Iron Age culture, and the megalithic burials are contemporary. So since then, since 1934 and 1948, or by the excavations of Brahmagiri and Chandravali, our understanding of Iron Age culture in South India gradually was enriched, but to a larger extent, even today, our focus has been more on the megalithic burials rather than understanding various problems associated. Until unless V.D. Krishnaswamy started to do his surveys in the regions of Tamil Nadu, we didn't have any idea how many types of megaliths that we have. Even today, our understanding of megalithic types are largely based on its architectural types such as the dolmens, schist burials, and pit burials. However, within these three major types of burials, there are sub-features or subcategories of burials to a larger extent to be understood. However, V.D. Krishnaswamy was the very first to identify and list out different types of megaliths that are evident in South India, and therefore this is the time where it told to the Western world that it is not just in the Western Europe that large kinds of megaliths are evident in the Neolithic context, but even South India exhibited diversified kind of architectures associated with mortuary practices, that is megalithic types. Further, gradual excavations started to become very critical, and now by the time after much the excavations of Brahmagiri and Chandravali, the excavations at predominant sites such as Maski, Veerapuram, Satanikota, Nagarjunakonda, Amaravati, Jadigenahalli, Kodumanal, various number of sites started to get excavated, and the concentration of archaeologists gradually shifted over the material remains that was available from it. Very interestingly, even when such kind of studies were happening, the archaeologists were able to discover large number of megalithic burials, and they started to understand that the habitation sites, the people where these live, are very scanty. To a certain extent, we can say 1:10 ratio or 1:100 ratio. You find hundred of megalithic burial sites, but hardly you can be able to identify one habitation site. Then there is a clear difference here. Then there are large number of burials. That means that these people, the people who are dead, they should have lived somewhere, right? So there was a disproportionate in understanding the Iron Age habitation sites and disproportionate with the burial sites. Now, how to understand that disproportionate, we will come into the later slides. I will also explain you what are these megaliths. To a larger extent, this term megalith is a colonial influence. This terminology has come from particularly the countries such as UK and Ireland, because these are the two states, UK and Ireland, which has relatively larger number of megalithic sites, but they emerged during the Neolithic period. So the term megalith, it came from Western Europe because of number of colonial investigators engaged in South India to identify it, and therefore they used their own terminologies such as Christamans, tumulus, barrow, cromlech. These were European terms that were used for their megalithic sites, and the same terminologies were brought on records in South India. So what is a megalith? A megalith is a Greek word derived as megas and lithos, meaning huge stone, in the sense that megalith is a building or an architectural feature or a monument that is huge. Huge in the sense that they are huge in the sense that hello, yeah. So huge in the sense that they are not liftable by one or two people. The dimension of the stone blocks or the slabs are huge, and it weighs tons to tons. And construction of those kind of megaliths is something that is very challenging. For example, the most famous megalith is the Stonehenge in the Stonehenge, UK. So like that, they were huge monuments. So therefore, these when they were identified in Europe, they are literally huge structures. So the same terminology was also brought into South India into the usage. To a larger extent, in simple words, megaliths are burials. Megaliths are burials with architectural features, and these architectural features are monuments, and these monuments were constructed or erected by the use of raw stones or slabs available in the surrounding environment. It could be rocky boulders, it could be extracted mined slabs, or anything that they used the resource of rock for the construction of wide varieties of types of megaliths that came to be known as megaliths. Therefore, in simple words, megaliths are nothing but burials. Burials that are marked with huge stones or it's different types of architectural features or monumental features for the use or for the function of mortuary practice. They are not houses, they are not secular structures, rather they are very, very purely burial structures that were part of mortuary practices of the Iron Age cultures. I will also take you across some important sites in the different states of South India. As you know, the different states of South India is Karnataka, Telangana, Maharashtra, sorry, not Maharashtra, Andhra Pradesh, Kerala, and Tamil Nadu. I will just like to show you some slides, some photographs by which you can understand how the distribution of types of megaliths is visible in different states of South India. And when I say states, you should not take very precisely, rather it's a rough geographical boundaries. Okay. Yeah, so megaliths in Karnataka, such as Brahmagiri, Jevargi, Hirebenkal, Maski, Koppa, Jadigenahalli, are few important megalithic sites that have been excavated and it is better understood. They are purely megalithic sites and Iron Age sites of multicultural periods. What we find here much predominantly in the Karnataka region is the cyst burials. When I say cyst burials, you have to observe the middle part where there are slabs underneath in the subsurface, buried in the subsurface into the coffin types or the transepted slabs. And it is enclosed by a stone circle, and that is why it is called as cyst burials with stone circle, or sometimes it is also called as stone circle burials. However, these stone circles sometimes also have pit burials instead of these slabs in the middle. How does the subsurface feature looks? This is an image from the excavations of Brahmagiri, excavated by Mortimer Wheeler in 1947. This is a classical example for the cyst burial or stone circle, or cyst burial enclosed with the stone circle. And stone circle was usually circled by the use of field boulders or boulders that are available at the hill slopes or the footings. And the slabs are very precisely mined from the bedrocks, and the technology of mining is still not very clear. Probably they used fire blasting method on the cleavages of the bedrocks to extract slabs. So these slabs were made as a compartments or orthostats. Therefore, the deceased remains are buried inside the metal, and they usually have circle hole or portholes facing to the east. This is another very crucial site which is very interesting to study. That is Hirebenkal in central part of Karnataka near Koppal. And Hirebenkal is known for its dolmens. Now, what is a dolmen? Dolmen is not a subsurface feature unlike the stone circles. Rather, the dolmens are constructed over the surface on the earth. Dolmens are nothing but it resembles a stone hut where four slabs that are used as uprights, and it is capped by a capstone. And you can see this image on the left side how the dolmens look, and they are huge numbers and in huge tonnage. In the same site, we also have anthropomorphs associated with the dolmens. Anthropomorphs are nothing but human-like figures or individual-like figures that are carved over the stones. These are another types of dolmens, which is called as orthostat dolmens or multiple upright dolmens or polygonal dolmens or passage door. It is also called as passage dolmens. These kind of dolmens are common in the Western Ghats of Karnataka. Then we have menhirs of various different dimensions that are commonly found across South India. Very interestingly, Karnataka also has examples of menhirs that are identified with the stone circles as well. Both stone circle and menhir goes together, as you see in the image. Then we have alignments and avenues. These are not purely burials, rather they were made for its own reason, which we still not aware of. Now, avenues are nothing but very patterned line of boulders placed in a pattern that you see in the upper slide, and we also have a solicitous menhirs that are part of astronomical significance, as you see in the lower end of the slide. And these are called avenues that are found particularly in the northern part of Karnataka and northern part of Andhra Pradesh. Now, coming to the regions of Telangana and Andhra Pradesh, when we say the regions of Andhra Pradesh, it also includes Telangana or the former region of Andhra Pradesh. What is very interesting here is there are a good number of sites that are excavated, such as Yelleshwaram, Ramapuram, Virapuram, Kota, and these sites are classical example for a typical type of burials such as uh, cyst burials with double or dual chambers, as you see in the left side. So inside that, we also try to find skeletal remains of the humans of two different individuals, and therefore this kind of dual chambered cyst burials was something rare to be found in South India, and they are usually found in Andhra Pradesh. We also have in Andhra Pradesh called as long, very narrow and very high-ended menheads, which are also called as alignments or nillurallu. They are nothing but menhirs. They represent different functionalities of its own, including the mortuary practices for commemoration as well as for probably astronomical significance. These are the in megalithic burials, it is very rare to find complete skeletal remains because most of the megalithic burials are secondary sites. Now, what is the secondary sites? There are two kinds of burials, that is primary site, primary burial, and secondary burial. Primary burials are those burials where you can find a full skeletal remains of the deceased or the dead. Whereas secondary burials are you don't find skeletal remains in a full scale, or you will find very few bones of the individuals buried into the megalith. It also indicates that the deceased was dead somewhere and he was buried somewhere else, and over the period of time, after the period of time, the buried skeletal remains were collected and brought somewhere else to their habitation location or megalithic site for proper disposal. So in the secondary type of burials, we hardly find few skeletal remains of the individuals in a burned and a charred context. And most of the megalithic burials are associated with the grave goods. As you see in the figure, you will find ceramics or pots and vessels, particularly redware, blackware, and marker ceramics such as black and redware. And sometimes these vessels contain floral remains such as food crops. And as a rule, as a testimonial, we also find iron objects here. All megalithic burials consist of cultural materials such as ceramics, some botanical remains, as well as iron objects. And some burials also contains beads or jewelries of adornment. Then we also have two types of sarcophagus. One type of sarcophagus is made up of terracotta that are usually common in the Tamil Nadu, whereas in Andhra Pradesh, with a much more later date, we will find sarcophagi made up of stone. Sarcophagus are nothing but coffins. As you see in Egypt, you will find mummified coffins. In a similar way, coffins are in the form of sarcophagi in the megalithic burials. However, we cannot expect a mummy or a mummified deceased in this sarcophagus. Rather, most of the sarcophagus are meant for infant deceased disposals. This is dolmens of the later period where the uprights are much more better carved, and you can observe that the capstone is a huge capstone. Sometimes it weighs more than 3 to 5 tons. So they had a better technology to lift heavy stones like this and place it as a commemorative feature. This is the excavation of Ramapuram. Very interestingly, in this excavation, a very rare find is that they found 3-legged jars which are globular in shape, and it is closed by an inverted funnel kind of a lid, and spouted vessels, chalices, lamp kind of terracotta objects were found from the excavations at Ramapuram. If you observe the lower image, you can find that the huge pieces of slabs, particularly these slabs are limestone slabs in the region that are available, and that is how it is a very complex kind of constructional activities that were taking place for the erecting of the burial. We have some evidences where the animal remains coming from the megalithic burials. When it comes to the regions of Vidarbha, There we will find horse ornaments or horse objects from the burials, whereas in a very rarest of the rare case in Pochmad in Andhra Pradesh, there we found full skeletal remains of horse. So therefore, it was very surprising to find that horse domestication was developed during the Iron Age period. So direct evidence here in the Andhra Pradesh comes in the form of the horse skeleton itself. Whereas in Vidarbha, in Maharashtra, northwestern part of Maharashtra, only horse ornaments or horse objects were found. Then in the same, in the other side in Ramapuram, they found the skeleton remains of a goat. So this is by this megalithic burial, it gave rise to our understanding that whether animal sacrifice was conducted in the megalithic spot. So this is one of the testimonial where they found goat remains inside inside a megalithic burial of a child. Yeah, this is another kind of evidence where the dolmen is enclosed by the stone circle, whereas usually stone circles encircle the cyst burials, unlike the dolmens that you are visible in this site at Pedigoni Pendam. Yeah, as I told you, most of the sarcophagus are infant burials. However, some sarcophagus also showed a coffin-like remains, where there was extended human skeletal found in the site called Tennuru in Krishna district of Andhra Pradesh. Coming to the megaliths in Kerala, now we can see that there is a deviation in the types of megaliths when it comes to regions of Kerala on the Western Ghats, particularly central and central and northern part of Kerala. What are the different types of megaliths that are unusually found in megaliths the megaliths of Kerala are the umbrella stone, capstone, and hood stone. For example, the slide on the if you observe the cursor, second, third, and the fourth. These are highly typical and regional character of megaliths of Kerala, where you cannot find these kind of burials anywhere in the world. Not only in Indian subcontinent or South India, these kind of burials, megaliths, are not found elsewhere. They also developed an elaborate dolmen passages, as you see in the first slide, apart from the most popular Kodekalu or umbrella stone, or capstone, or the hood stone. They very systematically made use of laterite blocks that are locally available in the laterite formations in the Kerala's of Wayanad, Idukki, Tirunanthapuram areas of Kerala. Then they also have rock cut megalithic burials that are common in the southern part of Western Ghats of Kerala, and these kind of rock cut burials are also found in the regions of Kasargodu and Mangaluru of Karnataka part of Western Ghats. This is a very complex hemming of laterite blocks, because as you see, the rock cut temples in the central India and in the Konkan region, the similar way excavation of rock or bedrocks was also practiced for the mortuary practices or megalithic erections. As you see in the left side, on the right side, the ground plan, elaborate systematic ground plan was developed to dispose the dead inside the rock cut cave. The material remains such as black and red ware, ceramics of different assemblages, iron objects, and the offerings continued to remain same even in the megaliths of rock cut structures in Kerala. Coming to Tamil Nadu sites such as Tannuru, Adichanallur, the Nilagiris, and Kodumanal are one of the earliest megalithic sites that got excavated, and it got better interpreted in the larger context of megaliths in South India. In the megaliths of South India, urn burials and sarcophagus are very much common. We don't know exact reason why it is very much common in the Kaveri Basin and not in elsewhere regions of South India. This is the image from Amritamangalam. It's an urn burial which consisted of skeletal remains of infant, dolmenoid cyst from Kanchipuram, urn burial with the remains of skeleton as well as botanical remains such as crops that were found in Adichaluru. This is another view of an urn burial which was capped by black and red ware bowl as a form of a lid, and the material remains and the deceased was placed inside the urn and it was closed and buried in the subsurface. In this image, you can see the use of black and red ware bowl as a lid. This is a very most popular and very rarest kind of sarcophagus that was found at Pallavaram in the Pallavaram excavations. Now, this is a very typical high end of sarcophagus because I was telling you it is nothing but a coffin. But this sarcophagus made up of terracotta or clay, it resembles close to the animal, such as goat or domesticated animals, with showing multiple legs to bear the weight of the superstructure of the sarcophagus. Different types of sarcophagus like this were common in South India, and this is one of them in the Pallavaram. This is another sarcophagus that has got associated with the cyst and the cairn packing with the burials. Here also sarcophagus is more or less like a coffin in context. Now, to a larger extent, we have seen megalithic burials in different states representing the time period of Iron Age. And even today, you can find a number of traditions or tribal groups erecting megalithic-like structures. In Northeast India, you have Khasis. In the Vidarbha or Chotanagpur area, you have Mundari tribes, and Todas in Nilgiris, Bodos, as well as Kurubas in southern South Indian tribal context. Particularly in the regions of Nilgiris, we have Todas and Kurubas in Karnataka region, where they also erect dolmens, which are similar to the megalithic dolmens of South India during the Iron Age. For example, you can see here on the lower end side where the dolmen-like structures were erected to commemorate the graves or to commemorate the deceased. And to a certain extent, dolmens are also erected as a shrines. For example, if you see here the second image, you can see a shrine that has turned into worshipping place of a Ishvara or a Linga. So this kind of continuous contemporary tradition is also witnessed here, which requires more ethno-archaeological details and ethno-archaeological researches to understand its continuity into the present. So we come to the second part of the talk here. I hope I have some more time. I will to continue here. The next part of our understanding is what do we find inside the burial. What kind of distribution pattern we have, what kind of temporality we have. Observe these maps very carefully. The black dots are the geolocations of megalithic sites recorded as per the 1994. I mean, we don't have a latest data. This is the data that is outdated to 16 years ago. Over 150 years of research, what we have, what Robert Brubaker was able to understood is that he spotted number of megalithic sites across Indian context. If you observe this map, the major concentration, the bulk of the concentration or high density of concentration is in the South India. So yeah, this is the South Indian context or peninsular India. We have more than 3,000 sites as per the records, as per the rough records of understanding the distribution of megalithic sites or Iron Age sites in South India. You can see here that the bulk of the concentration or distribution is in the northern part of Karnataka and in the transforming regions of southern Andhra Pradesh and northern Tamil Nadu. So this is the distribution pattern. We also try to understand whether there is a particular type of burial represent particular regions, such as that you see here. So these are the distribution of burrow megaliths or cairn megaliths. This is the distribution of porthole chambers or cyst burials, which are relatively different. You can identify, you can just compare how the density of burials are different. And these are all dolmens or dolmenoid cyst sites, the distribution of it, including in Maharashtra. Then these are the stone circles. So by and large, we can understand that the density of stone circle burials are much more higher in South India compared to any other types. These are alignments that are particularly evident in the northern Karnataka on the banks of river Bhima and Krishna. This is rock cut caves. Rock cut caves are reported highly in the regions of Kerala. And the rock cut caves in Maharashtra and other states are very controversial. This is the distribution of urn burials. Terracotta or sarcophagus. As I told you, the sarcophagi kind of burials or megaliths are more in the Tamil Nadu regions. We don't know exactly what was the reason for that. And if you look at the rank size, the distribution of megaliths, number of megaliths, Vidarbha region has larger concentration of megaliths in terms of number. For example, one site has 500 megaliths, 1000 megaliths. In that way, it's not number of sites, rather number of burials recorded in a site. Rank 2 is in Karnataka, rank 3 Telangana region, rank 4 southern part of Karnataka, rank 5 Tamil Nadu region, rank 6 Kerala. So this is a rank size analysis of the sub-region. However, this is not very exact or very precise, and this has to be considered in a very flexible understanding, not in a very precise analysis. I was also mentioning you that we have a lot of problems when it comes to megalithic sites. We don't know exactly how this development of ratio between the habitation site and megalithic sites occurred. But however, it is very clear here that the number of habitation sites identified compared to the megalithic sites are very, very less. However, therefore, we have to depend more on habitation cum burial sites. When it comes to Iron Age period, there are three types of sites. One is habitation site, burial site, that is megalithic site. Third one is habitation cum burial site. And nowadays we are increasingly identifying another kind of site, that is iron slag sites, iron workshop sites. Now, what are the grave furnitures or materials that we find from the burials? We can try to go much more into the general understanding. Most of the burials have iron objects such as axe, sickles, plowshares, hoes, and spades. They are common in large number of sites, and it tells us the story that these tools, implements, and weapons are very, very useful in agricultural activities, domestic activities, offense and defense activities. So therefore, it's a full range of activities. But bulk of our understanding comes to understand about the axes and sickles and plowshares is that these are the iron implements used for subsistence or antecedent agricultural practices. Yeah, these are the images of iron implements. You can just glance it. On the top side, you have arrowheads, spearhead, javelin from the sites of Kadabakele. Then these are flat axes from the sites of Koppa. These are daggers or knife from Kerala region. All these represent different geological regions, but iron objects are similar kind. These iron objects are retrieved from the megalithic burials. Very rarely we can also find the existence of bronze objects in the regions of Nilgiri Hills, but they are datable to 1st century to 3rd century BC. For example, on the right side, you can see that the dagger, terracotta figurine of an elephant kind of animal, then terracotta statue of a lady, very high quality of iron dagger, and a vase. And this is an arrowhead from the Nilgiri site. Some sites, very, very rarely, very exceptional sites, burials have also yielded iron objects, coins. These coins are of two categories. One is punch marked coins and the Roman coins. And these kind of evidences from the burials are the rarest of the rare case. Out of 3,000 megalithic sites, over 100 to 200 megalithic sites have been excavated. Only 1 or 2 sites, 2 burials have found with the coin remains. Every burial has some kind of agricultural crops, and these crops are also understood from the habitation sites. Now, what did the Iron Age people grew, or what did they consume as a dietary suit? It includes rice, ragi, wheat, kodo millet, barley, hyacinth gram, horse gram, black gram, green gram, common pea, cotton, and recently we are also having evidence of mango tree, cultivation of a mango tree, then citrus, then musa. Musa is banana. So therefore, though agriculture began during the Neolithic culture, and the Neolithic agricultural crops were more dry crops, whereas when it comes to Iron Age culture, they followed both dry cultivation as well as wet cultivation, which included all these crop suits. They were also good in domestication of animals and hunting and gathering, such as turtle, antelope, deer, sambar, wild sheep, chital, black buck, tortoise, poultry such as pig, bison, crocodile, tortoise, porcupine, rabbit. I mean, these faunal assemblages suggested that they consumed both domestic as well as wild animals as their dietary crops. And again, these skeletal remains, these animal remains were retrieved from both burials and habitation context. Very controversial is horse domestication. Where did this horse come, or who were the predecessors of horse domestication? And exactly it goes back to the Iron Age period. Because as I showed you, there are skeletal remains from the burial and habitation sites. From the habitation site, we have found horse bones. Probably the people consumed domesticated horse as their consumption. And from the burials, we also have horse ornaments from the burials. And even in the rock art images, figures of horse is common in the Iron Age, some of the Iron Age sites in South India. So therefore, we have images, objects, and the direct evidence of a skeletal remains of a horse from the Iron Age and megalithic sites. Therefore, it tells us that horse domestication goes back to the Iron Age period. Yeah, this image you have seen from Pochmad. This is the skeleton from a burial of a human burial, but there was a skeletal of horse as well. Probably this horse might have belonged to the owner of the dead or someone. Sacrificial context is also evident in the form of goat. Ceramic assemblages included number of types of ceramics are found from the habitation sites and megaliths, such as black and red ware, burnished black ware, red ware, micaceous red ware, russet coated ware. Yeah, these are the types of ceramics that we find. These are the black and red ware of globular pot, vessel, and a bowl. These are red ware of a globular pot, probably used as vessels or containers. We also have pan or a basin of red ware. Then we have small vessels or small utensils in the black polished ware with a high neck and a medium neck. And these are called three-legged red jars. Usually these three-legged red jars contains either the skeletal remains of a charred or a charcoal, or it consists of food crops into their repository. And these are very highly common kind of. In the later period of megaliths, we'll also find white painted black and red ware, which also shows which is also a testimonial that Iron Age to early historic transformation is evident in terms of this kind of ceramics. On black and red ware on different ceramics, we also find graffiti marks, and graffiti marks are of wide different types identified by the archaeologists, and they are different symbols. They are non-repetitive and very diverse kind of symbols. And so this graffiti might have also gradually evolved into the script as per some linguistic point of view. Yeah, so these are the grave repositories. Then we have rock art images where, though it is a very controversial understanding, one site called Chikrampura, it shows the mortuary practices of a schist burial or a schist stone circle in the form of rock art. For example, you can see on the top side is the original figure, and the left, on the right side, you will find an outline image where mortuary practices has been depicted in the megalithic site. This has to be very well understood that this rock art image is not from a different site. Rather, this rock art image is found in a megalithic site called Chikrampura near Hirebankal itself. So these are all about the burial evidences. Now the question is, what about the habitation or settlement, or where did these people live? We have different theories and hypotheses such as land-name process and semi-nomadism that dominated over 150 years of our understanding of Iron Age cultures. Land-name process is forest regeneration process where we lost their cultural materials due to the forest regrowth. On the other hand, the other theory is the Iron Age people were semi-nomadic. However, both the theories are very controversial, and it is particularly the semi-nomadism is discarded theory because people cannot build such a huge number of megaliths when they are in a semi-nomadic conditions. Rather, they would have settled at one particular place. I will just show you some slides about the habitation, starting with the Brahmagiri, because Brahmagiri is one of the earliest or the first site that was excavated in India to understand the correlation of Iron Age culture with that of the megalithic mortuary practices. So this is the stratigraphy of Sir Mortimer Wheeler from the Brahmagiri site, and it clearly established the continuity of Neolithic to Iron Age to early historic period. What very precisely Mortimer Wheeler identified in this stratigraphic sequence is that the kind of ceramics that were found from the adjoining burials of Brahmagiri, same ceramics were also found in the stratigraphical context. So therefore, it becomes clear that the megalithic culture, megalithic period emerged after Neolithic culture and before early historic culture. This is a very predominant and novel understanding during 1940s because it was not known what was the stratigraphic feature itself. However, Brahmagiri settlement context in Brahmagiri has to be understood much more critically, where it is not because Mortimer Wheeler and M.H. Krishna was able to excavate in a very limited space, not in an extensive spaces. Rather, my own studies, my own research projects in Brahmagiri shows that existence of multiple habitation locations on the foothills of Brahmagiri, as you see on the right side, and these habitation sites are multiple in numbers as their burials are multiple in clusters. So therefore, each cluster of habitation sites might have followed their own burial traditions or likewise, and so on. However, all these habitation sites are concentrated on resourceful areas such as availability of water or springs, availability of bedrocks, availability of relatively plains for the agricultural practices. Then at the excavations at Ramapuram clearly established hut floors in a circular pattern, as you see in the image. This is a general view of habitation from Ramapuram, and this is Iron Age levels in Ramapuram. Then at another site called Siropulle in Andhra Pradesh, they made a circular hut paved with the tiles. The floors were typically paved with the shale slabs at Siropulle. Then this is the mound formation on the bank of the river Tungabhadra at Veerapuram. Then similar potholes from floor showing post holes from Veerapuram as well. So we have other structural remains from Kurugodu, Kodumanal, Veerapuram, Ramapuram in different locations of Karnataka, Andhra Pradesh and Tamil Nadu, which clearly tells us that they constructed their huts out of wattle and laver, and they were circular or rectangular in pattern, and therefore their importance to the huts was much more higher in the Iron Age settlements. Therefore, they not only got limited to the construction or erecting of megalithic burials or the residential structures, rather they also gave emphasis for making of water storages or mud embankments for storing their crops. storing their water, because I told you that they followed both wet cultivation and dry cultivation. Therefore, moving to the importance of irrigation, artificial water storages on reservoirs was important in the form of mud embankment. This was also the period where Iron Age people started to use a number of rock shelters. For example, this is a general view of a rock shelter from Brahmagiri, where inside a rock shelter we have both the evidences of cultural material remains as well as rock art. And this the cultural material remains such as ceramics are typical Iron Age ceramics. And some of the evidences of the rock art also shows the use of iron implements or iron objects in their activities process, which clearly shows that Brahmagiri, at Brahmagiri, rock shelters played a predominant role. Though Brahmagiri is known from the times of James Prinsep or Branfield during the early 1900s, but over the period of 100 years, this was the very first time my own project discovered a rock shelter site at Brahmagiri. So there are various problems. These are long-term problems that we have to try to understand. One is we have to systematically document more and more prehistoric and early historic sites to identify the Iron Age context in the Western Ghats of Karnataka. We have to try to understand subsistence and population models by processing distinct categorical data and investigation at different ecological regions or subzones within South India to understand more about the demographical changes that occurred during the Iron Age. We have to develop an empirical framework to understand the whole human ecology, such as how these geographical factors in Western Ghats, in the semi-arid regions, in riverine basins, in the plains, or in the hill settlements, how it played its role in the economy and socio-politics has to be better understood. Much more importantly, we have to focus more on the site formation and habitation sites of Iron Age period, because for over 150 years we have discovered large number of megalithic sites. Now it is a high time to discover or identify or survey habitation sites to better understanding the above demographical features. There are various recent publications of my own. You can try to read them to understand these problems in more detail. So in a very single statement, I can tell you that Iron Age studies in South India is as old as 150 years of studies, but we have lot of work which requires social sciences and multidisciplinary sciences to understand the habitation, settlement system, landscape, land users and landscape process, along with the mortuary practices, along with who were these megalithic people, because we don't know about their origin or clear-cut geographical as well as chronological sequence. So these are some of the problems, and these are some of the important ideas that any one of you can develop your studies future in South India particularly. So by this, I will stop my talk. If you have any queries or any questions or discussions, you are free to ask.
Thank you so much, Dr. Arjun, for that insightful session. I apologize to the audience that as we are running out of time, we won't be able to take any questions. For those among the audience who have questions, kindly send your queries on the email ID mentioned in the chat box. So once again, on behalf of the organizing team, I would like to thank Dr. Arjun for accepting our invitation and giving us a detailed and insightful session on the Iron Age and enlightening us on various megalithic forms, archaeological sites, evidences, and running us through multiple perspectives from various literary schools. Sir, I, Architect Mildred Jose, conclude the first day of the webinar lecture series organized by the Center for Archaeology and History. Last but not the least, thank you so much to all the participants of the webinar for patiently listening through, though we exceeded the time, and making this day a success. Hoping to see all of you again next 2nd of November, Sunday. Thank you. Namaste.
Thank you very much.